Hi everyone. We're just gonna wait for more people to come in, but you're in the right place. Um, and yeah, we'll get it started in maybe 1 or 2 minutes. Okay. If you can use, we're kind of like experimenting with this webinar chat feature. So if you're here, you'd like to share a fun fact about your favorite food or just like anything about yourself, um, and then make it available for everyone to view. That'd be cool. But if you're not comfortable with that, you can just do set to like hosts and panelists. Just while we're waiting, share a fun fact again about either your favorite food or like a career aspiration you have. Okay, cute. There is no chat on this webinar feature. So that just means that we are
Oh wait,
using.
try it now. Try it now. We should have it now. Sorry.
Okay, okay. If you're just coming in now, we're using the chat to share either your favorite food and or a career aspiration. Maybe say your name if you're comfortable, but yeah. Okay. Philip is here, other Phil Wing is here honorary, but everyone else here should be either applying to college soon or just maybe you're a parent interested in how you can support your kid applying to college. Um, and we want to just invite you to this workshop slash panel slash kind of like podcast, not really, thing that we're hosting for the first time as part of VAR, the Vietnamese American Roundtable. And we wanted to provide the space that isn't normally or often provided to students from underserved or like underrepresented backgrounds in higher education. So we can give you the support that we wish we had, or yeah, just like the support we might have wished we had when we were applying to college in your shoes. So yeah, you do not have to be Vietnamese American to be here, and you do not have to just be applying to college right now to be here. You can just be anyone interested. All right, so this session will be pretty general and broad, kind of like free flowing. There aren't any set questions, so you guys can actually ask us questions using the Q&A feature. Feel free to try that out now. But we're open to talking about crafting narratives, just what colleges are right to apply for you, balancing workload versus burnout, um, and having a healthy mental place to be throughout the process, finding programs and opportunities, and so forth. And I will allow our panelists to introduce themselves. Um, T, would you like to go first and then popcorn it to someone else?
Yeah, sure. So I'm T. I'm currently a high school senior from San Jose, and I am going to Yale next year. My favorite food is manseo, like I said in the chat. I can eat mango every day. It's so good, but I rarely eat it. And then in terms of this panel, I'm hoping you guys ask me whatever question you guys want. Really do not be shy. Ask whatever is on your mind. Aside from Yale, I also, which I applied to early, I got in December, that means. I also got into Columbia, and I also got into Berkeley and other schools. So that's a little bit about my college profile. But yeah. Oh, I'll popcorn it to Philip.
Thank you, T. Hi, everyone. My name is Philip, and I'm from Garden Grove, California, here down in SoCal. I'm currently a high school senior, and this fall I'll be going to UPenn, which is really, really fun. I am a QuestBridge admit, so I got admitted in like December through like the National College Match. And I also did apply to Johns Hopkins, which I got rejected from, and UVA, U Virginia, yeah. And something about me is that like I am just like a huge advocate for Bumhaoe. Like I was happy it out with T in the chat earlier, but I love it so much. And yeah, that's a little bit about me, Andy.
Thank you. I'm Andy. I'm a senior in high school in San Jose too. I got into a few good schools like Stanford, Yale, Columbia, and a few other schools. But I think what I want you guys to get out of this panel is just to ask any questions. I remember like last year I was in your shoes and I had no idea what to expect going into the college process since I didn't have anyone else to guide me. So yeah, and also I love Chipotle. I forgot who said that earlier, but I love Chipotle. I'll popcorn it to Megan.
Hi everyone. Okay, I'm Megan and I'm going to Stanford University in the fall. I applied to Stanford Early Action, so I got in December. And afterwards I knew I wanted to go, but I also got into all the UCs and I also got into a USC program for it's called World Bachelors in Business, which I almost went, but I didn't. And they have like you just get like 3 degrees from like 3 different continents. And I think what I really wanted to see and what I wanted to achieve with this panel was to create a space where students were, just able to ask questions and not feel any guilt or shame about asking those questions. We're likely from a similar background as you too, and we can answer any like specific questions relating to that. I know my college essay is really tied to my identity, and that process of writing an essay can be hard. So feel free to ask me any questions relating to that. And yeah. Woo, good job, guys. We did introductions. Okay. So I think we can all share a little bit about what we thought the process was like compared to how we thought it would be versus how we came out of it. And that seems like a vague question, so I guess I'll answer it first. So I started like drafting essays. Well, I started brainstorming essays at the end of junior year, but I didn't write any draft I was proud of until literally August or September. So don't feel like you need anything beautiful now. When I went into the process, I thought that it would be extremely dehumanizing because I kind of felt like I had to put myself on paper and make it look good. But what I didn't expect to find out was that I found myself through writing all those essays and found out what I really wanted to do. At least what I really want to explore. Not sure about do, but what I really wanted to explore in college. And that support could be found in unexpected places, and you do not need to pay for any counseling. That's something I really advocate for. Finding those resources through free sourcing on the website or just the community you have around you. Okay. And if anyone else wants to try and take that question.
Yeah, I can add on a little bit. And so when I started the college application process, I did not expect for it to be so fast-paced. Because I applied through QuestBridge, my deadline was in September, and like only like a month earlier, I had just gotten back from Taiwan after doing like Nestle Y, like a language study program. And so I only had like a month to write my essays. And so like the fact I'm here today is proof that you can do it, but also it is really hard. Like it will take up a lot of your time. It really is time demanding. And so like I wish I had started like a lot earlier instead of just waiting until like August to like start like brainstorming and doing online essays. But it really is like a slow and steady process to the application process, just because like it can be really demanding. And adding on to what Megan said about like finding your community and finding resources, like I would not be here today without like the resources that were like available for like low income students like me. I did something called Matriculate, which is like a peer advising service that pairs academically qualified students who are from like low income backgrounds to students who are currently attending like some of the top schools in the country, like UPenn, for example. My matriculate mentor was from UPenn and she was a NIST-Y like alumna. And so like it really all came together and like the support was just huge. And in the end, like with the support of like these free resources and also my counselors at school, I was able to like get to where I am today. So I really am grateful for that. But yeah, that's a little bit about my college application experience.
I think I can add on. Um, I think my entire thing was really rushed. So please do not be like me. Please start all of your essays like I guess now that summer's in year, junior year, because I started my UC PIQs like a week before. And then I did my Common App essay like 2 weeks before January 1st. And I did every single supplemental the day the day they were due. So please do not be like me. But really what I really relied on was just my support system. Really, it's just the people you surround yourself with. Please surround yourself with people that will support you no matter what. They have your backs. And also, I think what got me through everything, despite having to write so many supplementals, was just reusing any prompts that I wrote prior. So like I reuse my PIQs in some of my supplementals if they fit. And if they didn't fit, I like rewrite them to make sure that they fit the prompt. And so that's kind of how I got a little bit lucky throughout the whole process. But again, please do not be like me. If there's one main takeaway, it's just start early. It's way better. And you don't have to stress out like I did.
Yeah, I second everything everybody said, especially reusing essays. If you're a junior right now, you only need to write a select amount of essays. You just need to write like maybe 10 main essays. This is going to be an aggregate of all the schools you've applied to, right? Different questions and things. And you just like kind of adjust them for different things, whether it's a UCPIQ or anything else like that. But in terms of the college process and when I thought going in versus getting through it and actually being in it, I think I was definitely a lot more stressed about the actual process than it ended up being, at least for me. Also let me know if I'm lagging. I see myself kind of glitching out a bit, but I really enjoyed writing my essays because for me, it was a way to explore what I could do. And it actually helped me understand a lot of the things I do and why I do them, surprisingly, helped me kind of uncover different parts of my identity in that sense. So part of getting through the college process for me, something that was helpful was looking at it with an adjusted mindset, being like, oh, this is an opportunity for me not just to show myself to school, but also just to discover myself through my essays. And for my process, I did not start early. I also did stuff super late. I did start my Yale application like a month early, and that was like the only one that I spent like a lot of time on, just because like Yale was fitting the vibes. It wasn't my dream school or anything. I didn't ever have a dream school. I was kind of just like, oh, this is vibey. Like, let's apply early. And then I actually spent time in the application, and I guess that worked out maybe. But I actually ended up using my very first draft of my Common App, which is like the one essay that every single school sees, as my final draft. Like I barely adjusted it from when I wrote it like in May for an English assignment. So the process is really different for everybody. And don't be afraid of keeping those drafts, but also don't be afraid of like killing your babies too, as in like killing your first drafts, because a lot of times you'll write something down and it'll be like, oh, that was interesting, and then you're gonna have to like adjust it a lot. So there's a lot of trial and error there.
On the topic of essays, my one essay tip is to write the essays for the schools you don't really care about the outcome as much first. And then once you submit them, you have the ability to keep making better drafts with the other ones. And since we have some questions in the Q&A chat, let's see. What do you think was the most pivotal part of your resume that got you into all these amazing schools? So from this question, I'm kind of hearing an internal question about what opportunities you took up that you thought were helpful to getting in. So I think we can start explaining some of our ECs and some of the things that were listed on the activity section, since a lot of people might want to know how they can get involved in those opportunities. All right, so I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. I think that one of the big ones was definitely the Youth Commission. I had only been doing it for a couple months, but I still listed on my application and I ranked it high because of the impact that I was able to get involved in. So I think you have to weigh two really important things when ranking it. Like how long you've done something and also the importance to you, right? Like it doesn't have to be the one that sounds the most fancy, but if it felt like the most important to you, even in that short period of time, feel free to rank it high. Okay. Other things I did Nizzly Y. I did that freshman year, but then it was virtual because of the COVID year. So I got in again for the summer year, and that was pretty transformative. And probably spurred my excitement to try other things. From then, I did an internship on Capitol Hill for a month with the USAI Institute, US Asia Institute, and they're like a nonprofit that does like work in foreign policy amongst Asian countries. And I got to meet a couple diplomats and a couple like policy analysts, which was really cool. And I also did a Stanford program that was kind of like a dual enrollment class, but not really, because I didn't get that much credit from it. It was more of a like each week you met and you did these deep dives into China's relationship with the United States. So you can see there's kind of like a thread. I did a lot of international relations things, but I didn't actually end up putting that as my major for Stanford anyways. And I was an executive director of Scribe It Forward, which was a nonprofit that someone else founded, but I took it over. And we did a lot of translation work for the Vietnamese American community. I did kind of phase out on that because it seemed like it wasn't the thing I wanted to focus the most time on. So again, gotta know what's most meaningful to you, kind of weigh your options. Like, do you want to spend time towards this or not? But it was on my application. I did a bunch of other school-related leadership too. But that's what I can remember off the top of my head. We can go into like awards and other recognitions, but if you guys want to talk about other things, you guys can.
Okay, I literally pulled up my Common Apps right now. But I'm not going to go over all these activities, not every single one, because it's not about the activity that you do, it's about the impact you make through whatever you're doing. I think a lot of people are like, oh my God, what exactly did you do that got you into Yale, right? And there's nothing exactly that you do. It's that you do things that you care about, and colleges see that. Because truly, when you do care about an activity, when you care about the community impact you're making, when you care about the relationships you're creating with other people, that's what's going to pull you through. That's what's going to show throughout your essays, throughout your interviews, throughout all of those different things. But me and Megan are kind of twinsies. So if you see any activities that are similar, then yeah. But I was also involved in the Youth Commission. That was a really, really big part of my application and the work that I do in San Jose. Let me scroll through this really quick. I do a lot of policy work. I do work with Generation Up, which Philip is also a part with. We're an education reform organization, serving as co-chief of policy for the past year with that. And I've also been involved with various types of community service, lots of things with teaching kids and underserved kids how to use various humanity skills, whether that was founding my own organization, Learn for Justice, or working with the San Jose Public Library and offering classes through them. And then aside from that, I have a really strong interest in law and specifically in corporate capture of the American public. And what I mean by that is corporations corrupting pretty much every single system in America. And so I did some internships at Harvard with that. I did the same China Studies program at Stanford that Megan did. It's called Stanford Spice, and I highly, highly recommend if you're interested in international relations or any other country. It's kind of like a way to explore any issue you care about in a specific region, whether it's China, whether it's Korea, whether it's Japan. Stanford has an amazing research program for that open to any person who is in high school, I believe. And then aside from that, I just did various other things like interning for the local government and things like that. But if you do want to get involved in anything political or policy related, or public policy related, or anything in that kind of sphere, you can always reach out about that. I think that was one of the biggest things that I cared about. And it's also what I'm going into, ethics, politics, and economics. And so I'm sure that made an impact.
Oh, I think I can add on a bit. So I am also a NISLE Y Alumni Plus advocate, and so like the NISLE Y advocacy pipeline is so real. Um, but I think to add some like clarity to my answer, I want to say that it wasn't like one pivotal part or like one pivotal EC that changed like my entire application. It was probably like a combination of like multiple, and it really shows like how I don't know if multidisciplinary is the right word, but like how diverse I am in terms of my interests. And so I did NISLE Y two times actually. Sorry. Um, two times like last summer, sorry, 2022 summer and 2023 summer. And so I did like the online version, and then like I actually went to Taiwan to continue my Mandarin studies. And I was so passionate about language study and like cultural exchange that I ended up applying to be like a NISLE Y alumni representative, and I got in somehow. And now like I'm in my second year term, and basically like what I'm doing is that like I'm promoting like these like language study abroad opportunities and like these opportunities to like get involved in like cultural exchange and like global exchange and all that kind of stuff. And it really is something that I'm really passionate about. And like alongside that, I have been working in GenUp like I think for about 2 years now, which is honestly wild. Um, I got involved in GenUp initially through like a local like contact. A policy director in my district was part of like the local GenUp branch, and I was able to like slowly work my way into like the national like state level like GenUp team. And like I guess doing like two different like diverse kinds of activities at once really allowed me to show colleges and most importantly show myself that I have like various diverse interests that are really interesting. They may be like completely different from each other, but these things they really come together to show your character, show your passions, show your interests. And I think that in the end, like this is what was able to help me distinguish myself because I showed that I wasn't just like a one-sided like person who focused on one specific thing per se, but like someone who was able to branch out and do a lot of different things and take risks. And I think that's what colleges saw in my app.
I decided to go last because my resume is a little bit different compared to everyone else's. I'm not as involved with policy work, but I am involved heavily in research. So I spent a lot, I think a main extracurricular of mine was doing research at Stanford. So I worked for two labs at Stanford. So I worked for the social learning lab and I worked for the Reach lab. For the social learning lab, I kind of focused on like experimental design and just like things a research assistant would do. I can't share more than that because I did sign an NDA. But as for my internship with the Stanford Reach Lab, I worked heavily on drug curriculum design. So I worked a lot on like drug advocacy and also again a little bit of policy, but not as much as everyone else here. Um, and I think another thing I was really involved in was Key Club. I'm not sure if you guys all have a Key Club at your school, but Key Club is a student-led international service organization. So I started out just like the club level, and then eventually I made my way to the California, Nevada, Hawaii district level. So I served as lieutenant governor for a division. And I pulled out my resume too. I'm just kind of looking across like what I submitted, but I did have a lot of other leadership positions at my school and a few other organizations, but I won't go too into detail because I feel like for me, what made my application really stand out was not my extracurriculars, but I think it was kind of more my story and how those extracurriculars brought those together. Um, I think all my extracurriculars kind of pointed to one thing, which is like my passion for like, again, curriculum design and how that works with the human mind and like cognition. And then I think beyond just like my story, my essays, my extracurriculars, it was actually the interviews that really landed me a spot in some of these schools. So I was offered like an interview for all the schools that did offer interviews, I got an interview for. And then one of them, actually, my admissions officer reached out to me and was like, hey, like, let's talk. I want to talk to you. And so I was able to talk with them for a bit, for 30 minutes. And it was like, I think they mentioned that as the reason why I got in. So really, if you do apply to a lot of the private schools, like Ivy League schools, they will send you they might send you an invite for an interview. And so really just try to showcase yourself to the best of your ability in those interviews. And I feel like that's what got me in.
100%. Thank you for all your guys' answers, of course. And if you are watching and you asked a question, we might have answered it, and you can check it in the answer chat. But I think if any of our panelists see a question they want to attack, like verbally as well, feel free to just like read it out loud.
There was the question that Philip put in the chat about how to hear all these opportunities organizations to get involved in. I got a lot of opportunities from everywhere, and I think it's because I surrounded myself with a lot of different support networks. So whatever you're involved in, there are always usually like, alumni spaces, there's like, discords that you stay in, or chats that you stay in, or people you meet on LinkedIn or whatever, right? So I got a lot of opportunities by honestly like having people be like, oh hey, like you are a proactive person, so you should like apply for this. And for this San Jose Youth Commission, for example, that was one of the reasons why I heard about it. And like I remember emailing the office being like, oh hey, can I submit an app for this? And they replied to me like, yeah, submit it like by tonight because we're deciding tomorrow. And I was like, oh Jesus. But it's just like when you're a proactive person, people will actually look for opportunities for you. But aside from that, in terms of like actively looking for spaces and different opportunities and summer programs and all those different things, I follow a lot of people, whether it's through social media, through LinkedIn, that I admired. And I was like, oh, like this is the type of work that they're doing, or like, oh, this is an opportunity that like really pertains to what I'm interested in. So I would either ask them about the opportunity, or I would look for that opportunity myself and apply for it and try to get involved. I also think that in a lot of my different extracurriculars, whether it was founding my own organization and teaching classes, or whether it was getting involved in interning at my district, my city district office, a lot of it was self-advocating because there wasn't a position beforehand. But since I asked, they were like, oh, sure, like we'd love to have somebody else to do extra grunt work for us. I was like, oh, okay, like I can get involved in that way. So you can make your own position at different organizations if it makes sense to do so. So there doesn't always have to be, an opportunity that's already branded out. You can make that yourself.
%. And one instance of this was I was working in a youth commission meeting, and then I came out and the deputy city manager that was giving us a presentation that day told me that he would give me a job at the city's planning office if he was still here in a couple years. And I also got to, because of that connection to the youth commission, I also got to see a committee called the Blue Zones Committee. And I don't know if you've heard of Blue Zones, but practically they're an organization that tries to increase the levels of wellness and longevity. They were doing like this huge project, and I got put into that because I knew who was running it through the youth commission. And then I also cold emailed for the internship that I got on US Asia. They didn't ever have like high school students intern or shadow, and I happened to go on a trip to the East Coast, and I was like, I really want an opportunity there. I've never been to DC, I've never been to Capitol Hill, so I emailed maybe like 10 or 12 different nonprofits that looked very similar, and then waited for a response from 2 or 3. And then from there, they like had a little chat with me over Zoom. They said they would take me on and also like show me all these opportunities. And now they're actually making a high school focus program for the first time, because they said that it was nice to have me there. And also like they had another student come in like 2 months after me. So you never know. Like T said, opportunities open up once you have the courage to step forth and insert yourself into those areas. So don't be deterred if you do not see a listing online that says, no, we're not accepting high school students, or actually sometimes that is true, but if you're not seeing it explicitly stated, doesn't mean that it cannot exist or someone will not be willing to make that opportunity for you.
I think I'll also answer. I think someone put in a question in the chat. It was like, how did you learn of or gain access to such prestigious research opportunities like the lab I worked at Stanford? And is emailing professors at such schools for research opportunities a good idea? So I think how I'm going to answer that is I think my lab reached out to me first. And so I worked with them and I was, I guess, sponsored by a different program. And so they kind of paid me to work there for them as a research assistant. And I'm pretty sure I was like the only I was the only high school research assistant in Stanford's Department of Psychology. But really, again, I think reaching out to professors is a great idea. I know particularly for that lab, they aren't taking in any high school interns for the summer, but I'm sure like other labs, if you reach out, they have openings. And if you talk to them, you make sure that your passions are known, then they will let you into their lab. And if not, then you can always try to apply to other programs that Stanford offers, like SIMMERS, which is the Summer Institute of Medical Research at Stanford. I think also beyond just like the research I did, I think someone else also asked, how did you prepare for your interviews? Kind of pivoting to a different question, but I had a lot of mock interviews with my friends at school, and I just asked them to ask me things, and then I try to see if I convey myself authentically. And also I try to research the school and see like if I found any programs that I particularly like, I like mentioned them during my interview.
I'm gonna add something really quickly. I just saw a question in the chat being like, do colleges prioritize how long your ECs are? Like if I'm just starting certain positions this summer, into senior year will be just as impactful. Yes. I started so many of my biggest positions this year. Youth Commission, I joined this year. Being co-chief of Policy Generation Up, I started this year. Doing a lot more heavy work with my organization, Learn for Justice, I did this year. It really doesn't matter. I mean, of course, you can do opportunities for a long time, and that makes an impact too. But I think that you can make plenty of impact starting things in the summer before your senior year or your senior year, and that'll show a lot too. It's just sort of how you present that, how you use it, and how it relates to your interest or your story. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to add on real quick. I completely agree with T. I think that I don't think colleges are specifically like interested in like the number of years or the number of months that you do an activity. Rather, I think it's the natural progression of your interests and your causes that really matter to the admissions committee. And so, like for example, I was involved at GenUp for about 2 years, but like my interest in advocacy stemmed from something that was in my childhood. And so like seeing like my little brother having to like go through like the IEP system at my school and learning about how like more advocacy is needed for people who are not able to like um what's the word? Sorry. But like it took a lot of like effort to advocate for my little brother because I was there at like his school. I had to help him out, and so that naturally led me to an interest in advocacy through GenUp, and especially when you have the opportunity to like write this into your college essays about like your life circumstances and like your childhood and how that has impacted you. I think colleges are going to obviously look through the numbers, like they're going to look past the numbers rather, and instead focus on are you making the most impact through this activity? Does the impact that you've made through this activity make sense? Because if it's like something that you've like just started like right before the college season and has like no obvious tie to like your past, like I think college admissions committees would be a little bit wary of that. But if it's something that stem from like your childhood or like a past experience that you explain to like the admissions committee, and then you start that experience recently, I think colleges are going to be a little bit more sympathetic and understanding of like how you were able to come to that opportunity, how you came to that interest. And so in the end, it all like boils down to like how you explain your activity and like the circumstances around your activity on your college essays, because then that will give the admissions committee the most insight into the impact that your activity has made.
I see a question. Someone asked, how do you communicate your passion even if you don't know what major you want to do? So I have a pretty, I would say, like, interesting perspective on this because I figured out I didn't want to go into IR after that internship at USAI, not because I didn't like it, but because I felt as if it wasn't the one for me. I just couldn't see myself working on like US foreign policy, um, and to advance like, the interests diplomatically of the US for, I guess, like my career. And it is important to note that whatever career you first pick likely isn't the one you do for the rest of your life, but I started pivoting then. And even though I pivoted on my application, it looks like a lot of my interests were in IR, right? So I wasn't going to shy away from it. I was just going to write it as it is because I did have an interest in it. So my essays did still go back to that. And I am in another special boat because Stanford doesn't admit you by major. So I am actually interested in data science and computer science now, like as a major. But on my college application, I didn't see it as like as obvious of a thread. Most of my essays and my ECs were around either civic engagement or international relations. So I would say write things as they are. So you can take that space to connect what you have done with your passions as they were in the past 4 years. And then from there, you can look as to like what you'd like to major in the future. But this is a particular case because Stanford does not admit by major. I don't know, maybe the other panelists would like to talk about this if you knew exactly how you're going to convey your passions. But yeah, that's just how I approached it.
I know the Yale admits by major too, even though we do list it. And even when you think about other colleges, actually, no, I don't really have a perspective on admit by major, to be honest. But a lot of colleges, every single college has a holistic process, right? Meaning they look at every single part of your application. It's passion, but it's also extracurriculars, but it's also your personality in some sense, your story. So I think college applications are totally about communicating your passion, but even more importantly, it's about crafting a story. I think when I was writing my essays, I was really thinking about it as if I was cooking or sort of like giving people a meal in some sense, where it's like different things were showing different parts of my identity, of my passions, about the work that I'd done in the past. It was like you kind of want to give people little snippets of each thing, little dishes, and that forms a cohesive taste palette for your school. And that was a very artistic way to think about it, I think. But in the meat of it, every single person does that. So it's not about, being like, oh, I've done all this public policy work, it set me into public policy. It's like, no, I'm a really cool person. Have done this. I really enjoy this, but I also really enjoy this, and I'm interested in the intersection of this, but also I'm open to exploring all these new things. And all that comes together and really shows an admissions officer that you are human. So humanize yourself through your essays because it is a very dehumanizing process sometimes. But you do want to present yourself as you are.
Okay, so we got some new questions. And I see Cassie asked, did you ever worry that you wouldn't have time, sorry, for all of your extracurriculars, or did you just try to branch out wherever you could? So time was my constant, it was my number one off, like all 4 years, because I wanted to do this and I wanted to do that. I was like, how do I do all of them? Because I was involved in Interact and I did that like a lot, right? Like service clubs were my thing. But that was something I had to drop if I wanted to pursue other things. So I phased out of my role in that. But it was like, I didn't regret it at all. You shouldn't regret the opportunities that you've picked when you were in your shoes then, right? Because all that sets you up for what you are doing now. But I would weigh things heavily. If you want to pursue a new opportunity, but time is a challenge, you have to be willing to sacrifice other things. And you have to know you are a human being that can't do everything. And you shouldn't feel guilt about it either. Because when admissions officers are looking at it and they're like, why isn't this person doing this all 4 years? That is not an actual question they'll ask if you're doing something else that's possibly better for you or more meaningful to you, right? So I was about to say I wouldn't stress about it, but that is not realistic. I would weigh things in terms of what would be more meaningful and maybe what would be more of a stepping stone towards your future aspirations.
I saw a question in the Q&A that I want to touch on because I know this might be a pretty stressful topic for a lot of people, but standardized testing, like SAT, ACT, all that kind of stuff. And so this attendee asked, should standardized testing be a priority for me if I'm interested in schools like Stanford or USC? And so personally for me, as someone who did the QuestBridge process and went through like the QuestBridge National College Match, I'm gonna be honest, I have mid like SAT scores. Like I'm just gonna be fair right now, 1420. Like for me, it was very mid. I felt like I could have gotten way higher, but I simply didn't have the energy or like the motivation to like keep studying for the SAT and also like going to like the test center at like 8 a.m. in the morning. It just took a toll on me. Like I could not. And so what I actually did was I did submit my 1420 to QuestBridge because that's actually within like the median like 50 percentile range for QuestBridge like applicants. But then after I was selected as a finalist, I ended up withholding my SAT score from UPenn. And so they never saw my score. Thankfully, they never saw my score because like the SAT like 50% median range was probably like much higher for UPenn. And so, based on like my personal experience, and obviously I'm not speaking for like everyone because everyone's like experiences can be different, but like standardized testing really didn't have an impact like on my app. And if you have the capacity to score high and like land in like the 1500s or like a really high like score range within like the 50% like median range of that school, then definitely you should because it can only help you. But also I think schools that aren't like tests required or like schools like in general that consider like ACT and SAT scores, you'll also want to look at the other parts of your academic record, like your GPA, of course, and also like the number of AP like exams, and your AP scores, because like they just tell like another part of your academic story. And to me, like academics is like the foot in the door for many of these like big schools. And like schools like I don't know if like this is speaking for like every school, but I know some schools they like to weed out students based on like their academics. And so like really like focusing on what's able to tell like a good like story about your academics will be helpful for you, whether it's your SAT, ACT scores, or whether it's other parts of your record.
Yeah, I think just to add on, I have a lot of friends from different states who applied to these types of schools. And while they didn't score very high in terms of like what the school like normally admits in terms of SAT, ACT range, they still submitted their score regardless. Like I had a friend who got like a 32 ACT or 30 ACT, I forgot, but he still submitted his ACT score and then he got into Harvard. But I think, wait, where did he go into? He got into Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, and Columbia. But I think this just goes to show that like your SAT, ACT score does not matter as much. It's kind of just a benchmark that they see, that allows them to see how well you'll perform in college. But I think just check what the median range of like the range of SAT and ACT scores are for your area. And if your score falls within that range or if it's above that range, no matter how low or how high, you should still submit because I do know that some schools are reverting from test optional to test required, like I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, like Yale, Dartmouth, I believe, right? Yeah, there are tests required now. Um, but like what Philip said earlier, I think academic rigor and GPA is also a very important factor of your intellectual vitality. Like for example, for me, my school didn't offer any AP classes, but they do offer the IB program. So I did the International Baccalaureate Diploma program. the bilingual diploma program. So I took language and literature courses both in English and Vietnamese. So I think it just goes to show that you should take up all the academic opportunities that your school offers and try to challenge yourself. And I think that's what matters more than just like a number that you get on your ACT or SAT score. Yeah.
I'm going to speak on that one more time because Senator is saying something that I have a lot of opinions about, especially after Harvard, Yale, Dartmouth, a bunch of other schools. MIT has been doing it for a while, and it's kind of like it's going to be a trend. More colleges are going to be requiring SAT scores again. But like everybody else said, it is only a part of your application. And what you'll see is that as more people submit their scores, since they're now required to, those ranges, those means, those medians at those top schools will go drastically lower. For example, me, I got a 1330 in my SAT. I took it twice, didn't study for each because it was something that I could not dedicate my time to. Like I hated doing the practice test. I couldn't even get through a single one. I have very terrible math skills and a very weak math background. And so it was just not for me. And I was just like, and I really beat myself up over it. I was like, this is going to like break my application. The fact that I'm not submitting a test score, it was a really big stressor for me. But after going through the process and after also reading into how SAT scores factor into your application, one of the reasons why colleges are requiring it now is to help out underserved students to like who stick out from their classes, from their areas, underserved, rural, minority, underrepresented, all that stuff, first generation low income students, especially. Like that's one of the reasons why they're reinstating them, which is very interesting. But I think bottom line is that yes, it can help you, but a low score will not break your application whatsoever. That's my take on that.
There was also sorry, I just noticed like another question that I thought might be really interesting to answer. I'm gonna pass it all off to you first because I want some time to think about it in my head. But how do you know if a school is like the right fit for you? I know it's a very open-ended question, so take your time.
Okay, I'm gonna answer first. I know I've been yapping a lot, but for me, I literally applied on Vibe, guys. Like I was like, oh, this feels like vibey. Like I should apply to Yale, and I didn't apply like Prince and other things. So I low-key like hated the vibe. I probably would have hated it there too. So I think you feel something, especially when you step into a campus. You really do feel how the school would feel for you as a college student. So I absolutely recommend visiting colleges after you get into them. And also before, but honestly, you don't need to. You can apply and then just like see what you get into and then visit so you don't waste money on visiting. That's what I did. It's not what you have to do, but that's what I did. Um, but I think the college process is a lot like a matchmaking process. I literally approached my essays like it was a blind date. Like I was like putting myself out there as if this college was like gonna date me because a college is like about forming a relationship, right? Like you have to choose a college, but the college also has to choose you in a sense. And then I think when you get into it or when you don't get into it, that tells you a lot about like how that marriage with that college or that relationship with that college is gonna work out. So a lot of it is like just vibes. Yeah.
Can I emphasize the fact that you should very much visit these schools? This I got into a lot of schools and they offered to fly me out, but I declined every single one of those fly-ins or fly-ins because I had like prior commitments because of like sports and things like that. But if I could go back in time, I 1000% just like just visit if they even if okay, if you're low income, then they will fly you out, especially some of the higher ranked universities because they have a larger endowment to do so. Um, but really please visit and also please interact with the people that who are visiting, see if the campus is the fit for you. Also join like group chats of admitted students. You'll see like the type of people you'll be spending the next 4 years with. Yeah, I personally didn't didn't have the option to like visit or wasn't able to visit these schools, so I couldn't really make a choice based off of vibes. I kind of just made a choice off of financial aid. But really, please listen to T and like visit these schools and have and like just scope around, see if you like the environment, see if you like the academic environment. Is I know like schools like U Chicago and like Princeton are very like academically like cutthroat. And personally, that's not environment for me. So yeah, really just try to see if it fits with what you need and what will help you grow as a person and as a student.
100%. Also, I am a person that gets seasonal depression, so I knew that if I was going to be taking midterms and then walking out and it's either raining or snowing or just like gloomy overall, I would be miserable. So that kind of eliminated a lot of schools off the list, a lot of the East Coast schools. I thought that I would be moving somewhere really far away, but it turns out I'm not, and I'm not upset about it. I think there was a part of me that wanted to be experiencing this massive change, but being under the California sun is no, like, it is no, it's not a bad thing to be under. Um, and other things besides location is post grad opportunities that I could not like explain in detail because it's different for each school, but I'd recommend you research go on Reddit actually. Here's the thing I haven't mentioned. You can go on Reddit and you can just search up a question you have. And likely someone has answered it in detail. Everyone else's reaction probably the same as mine because yeah. I searched up like this school versus this school just to know which one I should prioritize for my early application, like which one I should choose to apply to. So yeah.
Really quickly, I'd like to add, there's this subreddit on Reddit called A2C or applying to college. And because I'm like the first one from my family applying to college alone, I basically lived on that subreddit. But again, it's not a bad thing. It's just a lot of people who are the same shoes as you and they'd love to like reach out and help you. And I'd also kind of like to add on to what Megan said earlier about post-grad opportunities. So I also got beyond just like university, there's also liberal arts colleges. So I got into Pomona College too. And I was heavily, very much considering Pomona College because of the, I guess, tight-knit community you have, also with your relationship with your professors to help write your letter of recs. And like I think Pomona College is a good feeder to like Harvard Medical School and things like that. So very much so like if you're definitely considering going pre-med or like definitely going to grad school, then definitely look into liberal arts colleges because I feel like that type of environment will also be very beneficial to beyond just universities.
I just want to add one thing about A2C. It's a very helpful place, but you also have to keep in mind that Reddit is kind of like a microwave. Like the energy just continuously reflects through and through, and sometimes that energy isn't exactly that positive. It can be very, very negative. It can be very, very toxic. And oftentimes, like you might feel the tendency to just doom scroll on like Reddit and like see all these posts like R chance me. Like, please don't go on R chance me. Please don't. It's just a place where no matter like how good you feel like you are, like chance me is just gonna bring your hopes down just because like there are so many people who like to inflate their numbers and also people who like to look down on other people on Reddit, and it just feels like so toxic sometimes, and it often doesn't reflect reality. And so while there are a lot of like amazing valuable resources and ways to like get answers to questions, try not to worship Reddit because it will probably hurt your self-esteem and also your confidence in applying to college. In terms of how I determined that UPenn was the right fit for me, I'm gonna be honest, I based it off on a lot of like stupid factors. For number one, like this one wasn't so stupid, but the weather, like personally, I'm more of like a cloudy person. I love the SoCal sunshine, of course, but like whenever there's clouds, I just feel like there's a sense of peace and like aura like within me. And so that was one of the things that like pulled me toward like the East Coast because like probably like it's a lot cloudier there. And also like are you able to find a community there? Because like as someone who like basically considers NIST Y as their personality, I found like a lot of like NIST Y alumni ended up at UPenn. Um, I don't think there's like a causation, of course, or like a firm relationship, but there definitely was like a correlation. And I found that I was able to like probably relate with a lot of people there. And so that was one of the reasons that pulled me to UPenn. And also the fact that as an aspiring like history major, like UPenn is just so rich with like history and everything. And so definitely consider like the environment and the opportunities that it gives you to like enrich and like develop your interests. And also like this is like really, really stupid, but like Philip for Philly, like it was just downright like a really stupid thing to consider in my process, but like that actually did contribute to my decision because I was like, okay, should I apply to this school? Should I rank UPenn as number one? Hopkins is number one. I don't know what to do, but then like in the end, like I ranked UPenn higher because like I was like, you know what, I fell up for Philly. It's a really nice slogan, so I might as well just pull through and commit with it. And as someone who's like low income, I didn't have the opportunity to visit like UPenn like before I submit an application, just because that like number one, I'm broke. So like I have zero like dinero to be able to like go there. But recently in like April, I went to UPenn through like their fly-in program, like their Quaker Day. And turns out I loved it. So it was a little bit of a gamble. I recommend you visit the school before you apply if you have the means to. Also take advantage of like the virtual fly-ins and stuff. And I know that UPenn, they have this program called PEEP, which is the Penn Early Expiration Program. And basically, this is a program that allows you to like virtually like fly in and like talk to like professors. I got to talk with this really amazing like math professor named Professor G at UPenn through this program. He was just really, really cool. And I just loved the community so much. And that's what also pushed me to apply to UPenn. And like sometimes like these fly-in programs might actually boost your chances of admission to schools just because of like demonstrated interest. Of course, not every school like considers demonstrated interest, so that's something that you have to research on your own time. But definitely like there were a lot of like really interesting and also like pretty like practical factors that factored into like what I saw as like the best fit for me.
Okay, I saw a question in the Q&A that asked, is networking in high school something that puts you ahead? A lot of competitive applicants use LinkedIn, but does this help in how? For me, and I think for a lot of people too, connections make the world go round. Like networking makes the world go round. And it's not really virtual networking. It's like making contact, making communication, making genuine relationships with people who are in organizations that you're a part of, with people you meet at events. Getting yourself out there has been so, so helpful for me and has connected me to so many opportunities, things that I do today. And so I would say that when you attend different events, when you know, reach out to somebody, like the worst thing that they can say is no. I've cold emailed a ton of people. I've reached out to people who are higher ranking in my organization, being like, oh, hey, can I do this? Or like, do you guys have any open positions? Or would you be able to just have a call and help me talk about this? And they almost always say yes. So I think there's this like misconception that people don't want to help you, or that, oh, it's embarrassing to put yourself out there that you're bothering them. But so many people are willing to help you out if you just ask them and be an advocate for yourself. And in terms of LinkedIn, I view LinkedIn the same way as I do Reddit. Like it can be helpful. A2C was kind of helpful sometimes when I had a really specific question. But also LinkedIn was a big stressor for me in like sophomore and junior year, where I was just like doom scrolling and I was always comparing myself to others in the most horrible ways. And because it's like social media and because you only see the best parts of somebody on LinkedIn, it can be a really toxic place. So use it if you find it useful to look at kind of the general scale of things people have done, but definitely prioritize your mental health when it comes to these platforms.
We're so sorry about the time, by the way. It looks like it's already 7 p.m., but there are a couple questions left. And if the other panelists are down to stay a little bit and try to answer the remaining questions, we're all good with that. And if any of the panelists want to leave, like y'all are good. Like I'm just gonna see if I can take on a couple more. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to respect everyone's time. But it looks like we have a question. Actually, the LinkedIn thing, just want to say that like a lot of people Profros as an incoming freshman at Stanford, looks like they do not use LinkedIn. I do have it, but I didn't really use it until a couple of my colleges, like Pomona and Claremont, asked for a link to a resume or LinkedIn, and I just like put something together and then dropped it in. But prioritize having like a resume rather than like filling up a LinkedIn, because a resume is actually something that you will need if you actually go to apply for an internship. Okay. How did you build relationships with your teachers and mentors for the recommendation letter process? When did you ask them to write one for you? Really early, because our school mandates that we get those in at least a month before junior year ended. Like before they'd go on summer break and likely would not see it until, the incoming year. So that was something I hope if you're a junior, you've been able to ask a teacher for, two teachers for, and maybe your school has a process. But relationship wise, I was really worried. I wasn't too close with both my teachers, but these two teachers were the ones that complimented me in class. So I just remembered that and I was like, okay, I'll like, hopefully you'll write a good thing about me. And it is true, like, relatively, recommendation letters are positive. No one's going to be writing things like this student was horrible. Like, generally, if you're here, I know that the teacher wouldn't say that. And you shouldn't worry because they are generally positive.
I think I like the button about letter of recommendations. So I know a lot, or no, I know some schools have like specific like criteria they recommend, like, oh, get a teacher from 11th grade, or get a teacher that teaches in like math, English, and like a social science, right? But I think I ended up choosing teachers that I knew the best or who knew me the best, and I had the best relationship with regardless of what they taught, regardless of when I had them. So I had my English teacher from 10th grade write me a letter of recommendation. She moved to New York City to get her to do grad school at Columbia. But she wrote me a letter of rec despite her being my 10th grade English teacher. Like, well, was English like two? Yeah, like just my English two teacher. So I think she wrote me an amazing letter of rec because I got to know her for like 2 years. And then I had my theory of knowledge teacher write my letter of rec. So even though he wasn't like a math teacher, he wasn't like like a standard English teacher. He also knew me the best because it was kind of like a philosophy class. We debated a lot. And yeah, just like don't be scared about, don't choose like, oh, I'm gonna choose like my AP Calc BC teacher because that's like a rigorous math course. And I had that teacher in 11th grade over like the teacher I had in 10th grade who I knew like the best. Just pick whoever knows you the best and who will write about you in an honest and insightful way. And I think that's what'll make you stand out more.
I saw a really good question in chat about how you make yourself stand out in your essays, or if that's something that we should even strive for as you're writing essays versus staying true to yourself. Um, and that feeling that you're basic because you're Vietnamese American from San Jose, right? You're not basic. That's the biggest lie that the college system would tell you, that people and humans and kids can be categorized into these racial groups, that you have a lower chance of getting in because, oh, you're an Indian male or you're like an Asian guy or something from this area or whatever, right? And that just isn't true. And I think, unfortunately, that's the process of dehumanization from the college process that a lot of us struggle with and face. But ultimately, you have to stay true to yourself because colleges will accept you for you, because there's no point in pretending to be somebody else or something bigger than you are, because you're not that person. And you want a college to know all of these things about you because it is you, you know? And I think there's so much value in exploring your identity, whatever those identities are. They don't have to be like your Vietnamese American identity. Maybe it's your identity as like the daughter of an immigrant. Maybe it's your identity as somebody who is queer. Maybe it's your identity as a writer or as an advocate or as a young person, which is something that I wrote about too, right? So there's so many different factors that go into yourself that cannot be explained simply in a label. And I think definitely keep that in mind as you're writing your essays.
Okay, so I would love to add to this question because it's something that is personal because that was pretty much my experience. And to everyone who's about to write those essays, you got to hear me on this. Like somewhere halfway through, you're gonna kind of just be like, what if this is all for nothing? You're gonna have this realization and this just question to yourself, like, what if I write all these essays? What if I'm sitting here, I'm grinding, and nothing comes out of it? I get rejected from all my schools, and it's gonna come, and you gotta be, because you remember that I said this, you're gonna just sit there and be like, it's okay, because things happen and you'll find a reason, one. And two, when you're in that moment, I want you to just like switch your thinking and start glorifying yourself, right? You've been able to glorify school. You've been able to glorify like other people's achievements. So take that moment, take it for yourself, and start writing those essays glorifying yourself. Like, yes, we're being real, but you can also fake it till you make it. Okay. So maybe you don't believe it, but you are worthy of everything, including getting into that school. And if you ever feel like you don't, ask yourself, like, why wouldn't I deserve it? Right. So when that moment comes across, just believe in yourself. I know it's hard, but yeah.
I think another thing I'd like to add on in terms of just writing essays is just, I know everyone says this, but like be yourself, like be yourself. I don't know how many times I had to repeat this, but don't try to be that cookie cutter, like, oh, like this school accept me because I'm like perfect, like I got the score, I'm like, oh, I do all this, and I'm interested in this, but really it's just who you are, and if you convey that on like your essays, then that's fine. Even if you think you're like, oh, stereotypical like Bay Area, like Asian person applying to these types of schools, really you aren't, like you do stand out because in the grand scheme of things, if you think about it, you're applying, like the Bay Area is just such a bubble. And so the rest of the country is just like you are a minority still, no matter what anyone else tells you. I think also in my essays, I think what made me stand out is that I do like I like making jokes a lot, so I kind of like cracked a joke in one of my essays. And actually my admissions officer kind of wrote back to me about it. They kind of like sent me a letter in the mail and they mentioned that joke and how they like cracked up laughing. So I think what really makes you stand out is just how you convey yourself in your essays. And if you stay true to yourself, then I think really, really like from the like as honest as possible, that's what's gonna make you stand out.
I think there's one more question that someone asked. Wait, sorry. Hannah asked, she was confused about the overall process of getting scholarships. What are the types of scholarships we can enroll for? And where else can we find amazing scholarships? And so a big resource to look to, and this is something that I personally like regret, I wish I had done more, was like looking to like my local community. And I know like people say that all the time, like number one, do your FAFSA because federal money, like please, if you qualify, like it will help you out. And also like if you're in California, you get the Cal Grant and it will definitely help you out if you meet like the academic and like income requirements. But also I know like personally, like for me, like Orange County, SoCal, um, our Teachers Association like has a scholarship. We do the Strawberry Festival every year, and so there's like a little small scholarship for that. And also like schools like they establish like independent scholarships in like memory of like late teachers or like other like important figures. And so it's important to like ask your high school counselor because oftentimes they will have like connections and resources to be able to get you to those scholarships that not a lot of people like know about. It's like those scholarships that are like off the path that are less like mainstream. And also definitely you should like um what's the word? You should definitely like take a chance in applying to like bigger scholarships as well. So for example, like Questbridge, like the full ride one, and also like bigger ones like Gates. I'm trying to remember. I think there was Jack Jack Cook. I don't remember. Is it?
Jack can't cook.
Jack, yeah, that one. And so like definitely look at the smaller ones, but also like don't be afraid to tackle the bigger ones because chances are like you might get it. Who knows? Like when you're like doing these scholarship applications, it's important to think, okay, what if I didn't apply to this? Like you have to think about like um you have to like consider the fact that if you don't try, then your chances are effectively zero. And so it's just like your college applications and applying to like these big colleges or like wherever college you want to apply to, you also have to carry the same mindset into like these scholarship apps because at times you might feel like, oh, there's so much more qualified people than me. Like I'm never going to be able to get it. But if you don't put your hat in the ring, like who knows like what's going to happen? Like you will never find out if you don't like take a shot. And so definitely take risks and be bold because it will help you out and chances are you will make bank.
I think I said this in chat, but look for local scholarships, guys. My biggest regret in my college process was not applying to more scholarships. So many places and local places give you like free money if you just like submit an essay or something. But I just reuse my college essays literally. And again, don't be afraid to put your hat in the bin because I didn't apply to so many scholarships that I regret not applying to now because I was like, I'll never get it. It's like a statewide national scholarship, whatever. But for some of them, like I just like applied to them anyways, copies of my college essays, literally did it in hella short time, and I got some of them, and then I was like, oh, why did I do this with like a gazillion more national scholarships and get thousands and thousands of dollars? Like there's so much money out there. Just like put yourself out there. Assign some time. A lot of them are due like January, February, since like after the big college burst. So like I would definitely dedicate a lot of time, or not a lot of time, but like a solid week or two to just like applying to scholarships. It's really worth it.
All right, so that was, I think, every question that was asked. And we hope we answered your questions to some extent, satisfyingly. And we really want to thank you for your time if you're here as a participant. All our panelists, I'm so proud of you guys. I just want to say that, like, literally, you guys are amazing. I can't wait to see all the amazing things you do. And thank you for agreeing to be a part of this. If you guys want to do any, yeah. Philip asked, where can we find you to connect? So I can drop my email and I can do that. Okay. Feel free to say any final words as well if you guys want to.
Oh, Phil said that we should drop our Instagrams like vocally so that for like the podcast purposes. And so my Instagram is at PILLUP_NGUYEEN. So yeah, there's that.
This is T. You can reach me at Instagram at THYHOPELUONG. Not me forgetting to spell my name.
This is Andy. You can reach me on Instagram too at 0171AD.
You can reach out to me at MEI and then YQN.
We can spell congrats.
All right. Thank you, everyone. That's it for tonight. Yep, that was the bar applying to college panel. Yay.